Hi, I'm a 2-mana sorcery whose card name is the same as its rules text. Kira.
Hi, I'm a 2-mana mouse with valiant impulses. Maya.
And today, what is a judge?
Yeah.
Who are judges? What judge?
Why
judge? Today we're talking about judges. This is a brief and casual introduction to judges, the role of a judge, judges at your events, the ABCs of your 1, 2, 3s of meeting a judge at your event.
Yeah, and navigating judge-related things. And it's worth talking about. We are going to have an episode a little bit later that will go into this topic far more in depth. This is very much a surface-level discussion of how to interact with judges, just so that you feel that you're well-equipped when you next have to interact with your local judge. But in terms of in-depth content, we do have something coming out a little bit in the future that is going to do more of a deep dive for those who are interested.
This is pond depth, not ocean depth.
Certainly. We are nowhere near the Marianas Trench.
We're also going to mention this is not comprehensive. This is a primer or perhaps a brief introduction to judges and a judge's role at both casual and competitive events. This is a bit more of a let's meet the judge at your event and less of a comprehensive here is everything a judge does and here is why we have judges and because we have judges.
This is not designed to be a primer on the infraction procedure guide. This is very much supposed to be, hi, this is your judge, this is what they do, say hi to them.
And how many pages is the infraction guide?
The infraction procedure guide is only 30 pages.
Oh, good. I thought...
The comp rules is a little juicier.
I was worried. It's worried because I'm even novel. You're going to bring a very interesting perspective to this as well, Maya, because you're an L1 judge.
It's true. I know how I want other people to perceive me as a level 1 judge. So I get to bring some powerful bias to this discussion.
Well, look, diving right in, when you're attending a casual tournament of Magic, and we're using casual here to kind of encompass casual play, your weekly events at your LGS.
Things that aren't run at competitive rules enforcement.
What should you expect at these events?
Good things.
Good things. Good fun time Magic.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Magic players they're definitely a bit nerdy, but, we're speaking from personal experience, I am broadly very excited and enthusiastic about Magic. I think it's awesome, and I have found that is true for the people who I play with. Look, unlike the video game community, which admittedly gets a little bit of a bad rap about having a negative play experience, a negative play experience in Magic is definitely the exception and not the rule. When you come to a Magic event, you should be expecting to have fun, especially at a casual level where the aim and the focus is on, joyful play, finding cool interactions, laughing when something goes wrong, about take-backsies, rewinds, and good times.
Casual tournament play is just that. Casual. And that's a word that gets tossed back and forth in a variety of situations. What we mean here is that there are low to zero stakes at your weekly casual play events. There's not an invite to the Pro Tour on the line or a regional qualification hanging in the balance. You're still playing with the expectation of following the established rules. Things like cheating and poor conduct will still be called out. It is meant to be far more low stress than a bigger competitive REL tournament.
The difference from a judge philosophy perspective is that at regular rules enforcement, so at your casual events, the primary goal is for people to be having fun. Whereas at competitive rules enforcement, the primary goal is for the tournament to be fair and skill testing. So at casual, it is a little bit anything goes, to be perfectly honest with you.
And we mean anything goes in terms of the decks that you're playing, what you're bringing to the table. This is not anything goes for cheating.
No. Please do not cheat. You are still not allowed to cheat. We do expect you to actually play Magic. But in terms of the rules are so much more forgiving at this rules enforcement level that you can make pretty much any honest mistake, and there are almost no consequences.
Keyword being honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Honest mistake. And like when you rock up to your weekly events, you'll see all kinds of things. You will see people playing on meta. You'll see a lot of people playing off meta, people who are brewing, people who are testing, people who are playing to hone their competitive skill, and people who are just getting into the game for the first time. And that's where this emphasis on fun play comes in. Because you have people at such varying levels at these casual events, in a way, you are setting the standard by the lowest tier of competition, what I would say. You're
Certainly.
setting it by casual, not by the highest tier that someone at the event wants to play.
At a competitive event, there is an implied social contract where you are playing competitively. You are doing all the things in your power within the rules of the game to win at Magic. And that just isn't there at a casual setting. The social contract is, I want to have fun and I want everyone to have fun. And yeah, a competitive game of Magic is great, but it's not for everyone. Commander is overwhelmingly the most popular format in Magic, and its focus is so much more on casual, fun-focused gameplay than, I don't know. I don't know that many people who own CDH decks, put it that way.
We've talked about judges, we've mentioned judges quite a bit, but we have not asked the fundamental question. What is a judge? Who is a judge?
A judge is a person who is often a staff member, but they're trained specifically in running events smoothly. They also happen to be trained in most of the Magic the Gathering rules, at least the relevant ones. They also will usually have training in conflict resolution, impartiality, and the judge system is designed so that individual judges have to be vetted by their mentors to ensure that they have a personality and goals that are, of course, suited to the role. Judges are often distinctive at an event. Even at your casual events, if they're working at a judge, they'll often either be in all black or they'll have a badge or a patch identifying them as a judge. So if you're not sure if a judge is on staff, look around or just ask your store staff who can point you in their direction. For most competitive events, judges make themselves known prior to round one. There are typically a handful of announcement and housekeeping rules to remind players of, and they'll take the lead during this time. Judges are not shy creatures. We do love the sound of our own voices.
So in these situations, you have a judge at your event.
Mm-hmm.
What should I use a judge for?
Everything. And I am not kidding. It's kind of what we're here for.
Everything. Take your judge out for coffee.
Oh, please.
Sit them down.
Yeah. Everything and anything you can think of within reason is what we are for. We are a really underutilized part of Magic events, to be honest. We tend to be, royal we here, talking about not the royal we. Actual we here, not the royal we here, talking about all judges. We tend to be pretty knowledgeable about Magic, and we're trained in making sure that everyone is having a good and fair time. Everything from asking rules questions, asking for text on foreign language cards, any event concerns, getting someone to watch your cool plays. We're here to help and support everyone at the event. Just as a very quick laundry list, we answer questions. We explain how cards work. We explain elements of the rules. We help you build your limited deck. We help you with any accessibility related issues, from shuffling to locking a table number. We help mediate conflict. We help provide anonymous feedback. We watch your games for unwanted behavior from your opponent. We do it all. We will just chat.
Your judges will tie your shoes for you.
Just about. You finish your round 20 minutes early and need someone to chat to? You know who really likes chatting about Magic? Judges. Yeah.
I'm shocked.
It is worth noting that for rules questions, a head judge's ruling is final. And we will talk a little bit about the difference between a head judge and a floor judge, because it is important. A head judge at any event is the final arbiter of the rules during that tournament. And typically this delineation is only really important for competitive events, but it does come up occasionally at more casual events. They are the final arbiter and enforcer of the rules. They are the head honcho.
For the most part, your casual tournaments will only have a denoted head judge, quote unquote. There will not
exactly.
be multiple judges at your weekly standard events, for example.
No, unless you have multiple judges that are store staff who just happen to be running the event, it is very, very unlikely.
And unless you start living my dream, which is having 30 plus attendees at your weekly weekly standard events, you don't typically need more than one judge.
Certainly not. And it's worth noting that if there is only one judge at an event, they are the head judge.
One judge, head judge.
Exactly. Judge. It is worth noting that the head judge is usually responsible for bigger decisions, and they are referred to for more complex rules questions. They're responsible for the large-scale running of the events, more than taking individual rules questions. They are also the final decision maker for things like the disqualification decisions, but I expect that is not something you're ever going to have to face, podcast listener, is it?
It's gruel. Golgari.
They are also the primary liaison between the players and the tournament organizer. Often they're the ones making the announcements, and it's worth noting again that rulings from the head judge are final.
Let's expand on that a tiny little bit. What do you mean when you say a head judge's ruling is final?
So, in any event, when you call a judge, you get to ask them about rules questions. You get to say, hey, this thing has happened in my game. I'm not sure what happens. Or this thing has gone wrong. What needs to happen to fix this? Can you help? Oh God, please, what has happened? And the judge will come over and they will essentially explain to you if something has gone wrong, what has gone wrong, how they're going to fix it, and why the way they're going to fix it is equitable. And they're going to teach you how to not make the same mistake again. Or they're going to explain, a memory trick to memorize that little bit of the rules that will help you in future games. But if they're the head judge, that decision is actually final. Because they are the final arbiter of the rules, once they give that ruling for the rest of the tournament, that's how it works, even if it's wrong, which shouldn't ever happen, by the way. This is different for a floor judge, and we'll talk a little bit more about their responsibilities, but with a floor judge, you can do something called appealing. I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent and talk about floor judges.
Please.
Because floor judges are great.
Floor judges, wall judges, and ceiling judges.
Exactly. Don't forget the basement judges.
Floor judges.
Exactly. Floor judges are typically the one taking most of the questions on the floor. When you put your hands up and call, judge, they are typically the ones that will come running. They are very knowledgeable about the specific rules that are coming up in your tournament, and they're often also responsible for looking into any patterns that are cropping up and for tracking people who are playing slowly. Typically, it's also the first point of contact. One thing to note, though, is that floor judges are unable to deviate from the specific fixes. Quite like real judges, judges are trained to apply the magic rules by the book every time. And the reason for this is that we want the magic rules to be the same everywhere. We don't want something to work one way in Australia and another way in the US and another way in Japan, because that will be confusing and it's just not a great way to uphold the integrity of a tournament. And floor judges are not allowed to deviate from that. A head judge, though, can. They have the power to essentially change fixes and change rulings within reason to essentially smooth over the process. So as a result, you can appeal rulings made by the floor judge. It's worth saying that you please wait for the floor judge to finish their ruling. Because often if you have a question or you have a bit more information that you want to add, floor judges are actually pretty good at their jobs. And so they will often bring up whatever you're about to ask as part of the ruling. And it's also just a little bit of respect. But once they've come to the end, you can absolutely ask for an appeal if there is a head judge. While floor judges will never straight up tell you to appeal, it is relatively common practice to heavily imply you should appeal. This is typically either because they're not confident in their ruling or because the fix that they have to implement, because they can't deviate, is clunky, and they know that the head judge will deviate in such a way as to make your experience better. Please do not be afraid to appeal. The entire reason we have a head judge for big events is to ensure the consistency and high quality of rulings across the tournament. They're a great tool even if you just want a second opinion. It's not an insult to the floor judge. It's not time wasting. You'll get the time back at the end of your round. But if you just want it like a bit of extra clarification, if you want it explained in a different way, if you want to add a bit of information that the floor judge just isn't getting, appeal. It's as easy as that.
And this, of course, again, is for those competitive REL events. This is not something you're really going to be coming across in your weekly play events.
Yeah, it is.
Rarely, if ever.
It is unlikely to ever happen at an F&M, but it can.
And it's good information to have. And it's definitely something we will elaborate on further in potentially another 1 or 2 more judging episodes.
Oh, yeah. There is so much to cover when it comes to judges. But the TLDR of this whole conversation is, if you can appeal, don't feel afraid to. Appeal, that's what we're here for. We love it. Talking about Magic rules more? Oh no, whatever will a judge do?
Now, we've mentioned as well that the point of these weekly events and things like Friday Night Magic is to have a really good time. But, I'm not having a good time. What do I do in that situation when I'm not having a good time?
Talk to a judge. I know it sounds silly, but this is literally what we're employed to do. We are professionals in making sure people have a good time. So come to us. Let us use our skills. Everything we are here because we want to know about these experiences so that we can improve on them. Like everything from a bad beat story to a concern about another player is something that you want the judge to know about, because judges love hearing bad beat stories and will be there to laugh with you about it. And if a player is doing something that's a little bit sketchy, we need to know. We need to make sure that it doesn't continue to happen, and that especially going forward and in the future and in matches onwards, even the next match, that you are having a better time than you were having when you felt the need to make a complaint. We are, alas, stuck behind a counter, not playing Magic most of the time. So we live vicariously through your bad beat stories. So please feel free to talk to us just about like your Magic experience.
You briefly touched on as well this point of contention of, I'm worried my opponent or a player in the tournament is doing something sketchy, worried that they might be cheating, or I've seen them cheating, I saw them do this. It is incredibly vital in those moments that you bring that up to the judge as soon as you notice or as soon as you have the concern. As good as it is to hear the information after the event has ended or a day after the event has ended, there's nothing that can be done after that time has passed. If there is a concern that you need to bring forward, it needs to be brought to the staff's attention immediately, whether that be your judge for the event or the store staff. These are concerns that, in a way, cannot wait. And it may seem quite intimidating, and if you're feeling a bit uncomfortable, the staff can potentially take you outside or take you to a private area to express your concerns so you don't feel as though you're potentially tattletaling on someone. But speak up. It is important for the integrity of the game, even at a casual level, to not have people who are cheating or to not have people who are making you feel uncomfortable.
That's the beauty of judges as well, is that because we are trained in mediation, we can often work as a third party for anonymous complaints. Like if you are having an issue where you're seeing a player cheat, but you don't want to be the one that confronts them about it, or you don't want to be, you don't want to be seen tattling, talk to a judge. That's what we're for. It is worth noting as well that asking a judge a question away from the table is very normal. It is very, very common, particularly in competitive play where you don't want your opponent to gain an advantage from the question that you're asking. But if you feel the need to talk to a judge away from where you are, just say, hey judge, can I talk to you away from the table? And they'll be like, yeah, absolutely. And when you say that, not only will we take you away from the table, we will take you out of earshot of your opponent, because that's very important. And if you're worried, bring along a card or two so you can point and you can pretend you're asking a rules question if you need to. That's perfectly okay. That's perfectly allowed. We would so much rather you do that than feel like you have to bite your tongue to preserve social graces.
I have had moments where I've just needed to ask a rules question away from the table, and I've had a judge once before ask me if I was okay before I asked the question. And that felt incredibly caring. It was really lovely that their first concern wasn't actually about the game itself or about the rules. It was about me and about if I was doing all right, if something was wrong, or if I was, speaking to them because I was potentially uncomfortable. Incredibly kind. And judges are often very, very nice people. And it was lovely. It was a show of concern for more than just the game. but for the people who are playing the game. And that's what's so important in these situations, is being able to speak up and feel comfortable speaking up. Obviously, of course, if you cannot say anything in the story and you do tell us later, it's good information to have. Just know that oftentimes it's not actionable at that point.
But, especially from a judging perspective, it does give the judges something to look out for. While behavior in a previous event is not something that we can punish at the next event necessarily, it is something that we can keep an eye for like a pattern of behavior. Or we can keep an eye on if somebody has a reputation for, getting a little bit angry when they lose a game. We can make sure that towards the end of the games, we are standing somewhere nearby so that there is just that little bit of social pressure to stop it. Judges are pretty much designed and built for de-escalation and making sure everybody is having a good and fair time. And the more information you give us, the more we are able to do that for you.
Now, here's a sticky situation. What if the judge is the reason that I'm not having a good time?
This is a really, really, really important question. And it's actually a pretty serious problem because judges are ultimately the ones responsible for the integrity of the tournament. It encompasses everything, of course, from ensuring players are not cheating to rounds finishing on time to making sure, again, players are having a good time. If you're uncomfortable with or you have a loss of confidence in your judge, you need to discuss it with your tournament organizer, probably discreetly. I am going to do a very quick pivot here to talk about what this looks like. Because as a judge, there are many good systems in place to ensure that your judges are fair, impartial, and well-informed. But sometimes judges do suffer from being human.
What?
I know.
Judges
crazy.
are humans. Judges are human beings and not magic robots.
Amazing. I know. Look, judges do make mistakes. And as much as we try to be perfectly impartial, the reality is that doing so is practically impossible. Broadly speaking, judges love feedback. It's one of the biggest things that a judge mentor will look for in an aspiring judge is their ability to positively take feedback. If you're unsatisfied with how a ruling or an interaction went, I highly, highly recommend finding the judge while they're not too busy and having a conversation with them about your experience. Often, all we need is a bit of context and a bit of communication, and somebody having the strength to come up to us and explain it to us is usually all the impetus we need to change our behavior. We want you to have a good time. And if you express to us that something that we did was making you have not a good time, then we are going to, within reason of course, we are going to change that to be accommodating because we want you to be having a blast. We don't want you to be uncomfortable with us. Sometimes though, the issue can be bigger. If a judge is unprofessional consistently, they're getting lots of rulings wrong, they're enforcing the rules in ways that are not consistent, and they're showing preferential treatment towards regulars and friends, and they're not correcting player behavior, then it's time to have a more serious conversation with the tournament organizer and the other local judges in your area. At this point, I probably would not have that conversation with the judge. I would have the conversation either directly with the store or the tournament organizer directly. And if the judge is a staff member at that store, talking to a different staff member either on a day they are not working or reaching out directly through a messaging service and engaging that way. Also, if you know any other local judges in your area, talk to them because they will be able to give you some context as to what is happening. The judge system is set up to have a decent level of self-regulation built into it. So letting a local judge know what you saw is a great way to get an investigation going. Ultimately, a judge's usefulness it only extends as far as a player's confidence in the skill of the judges as a whole. So as a community, we really do take that kind of feedback extremely seriously. But I've got to say, I've never seen it happen. Because of the way the judge system is set up, because of the way mentoring is set up, because of the way that judges engage with each other, and also just because of the kind of person you have to be to want to spend your time improving the quality of an event for people, it's pretty seldom that it does happen. So when it does happen, please, please, please let us know, because we really, really do want to make sure that your experience playing Magic at a casual or competitive level is as good as it possibly can be.
The number one thing that you should be doing at any Magic event is beating face. And second to that is having fun.
Of course.
No, it's the other way around. Like, ultimately, especially at things like your casual weekly events, you should be having a good time. And when you are not having a good time, please say something. The store, the judges, everyone around you want you to be having a good time. If there is something that is preventing that, speak up.
Even your opponents want you to be having a good time, because if you're not having a good time, you're not coming back and they will be one opponent shorter. And that's no fun for anyone.
Having a bye is never a fun thing. And look, ultimately, yes, it's going to feel a little bad if you're on 2 lands when you're on turn 5 and you just keep drawing on land cards. Like, there are moments when you're not going to be having a good time and there's nothing to do about it except potentially scoop and move to the next round. But when there are factors at large that can be influenced and can be mitigated to improve your experience, let us know.
100%. The very last thing I will say, and this is a part of pretty much all my judge announcements I do now, is I say, if you're in doubt, call a judge. If you ever think, should I call a judge here? Yes. Yes, you should. Are you thinking, I probably shouldn't call a judge here? Yes. Yes, you should. If judge ever goes through your brain, call a judge. We are there to be utilized, and we would much rather you err on the side of overutilizing us than underutilizing us, because we're there ultimately in service of your needs. So we want you to be using us and having as good a time as you can.
Judges are not the big bads of your events. And
No. That was a joke. That was a joke, I promise.
and ultimately, you should not, at a baseline, fear the judges at your events. Unless you're cheating. Then you should definitely fear the judges.
Well, I mean, if you're cheating, then maybe talk to a judge about potential places to get therapy, or
judges have a wide variety of uses and they have a lot of resources.
and it is worth noting, even if you are cheating,
which you shouldn't be.
No, please God, don't cheat. It's not worth it. But a judge isn't going to be adversarial. Even when you are cheating, we're not your mum. We're not going to tell you off. But we're going to
wrap you on the knuckles with a wooden spoon.
Exactly. We are just going to have to say, look, you unfortunately compromised the integrity of the tournament. So for this tournament, we can't have you here. And we're sorry. We know it sucks, but this is what happened. This is why it's wrong. And here is how not to do it again.
And these are things that we will go into in much, again, lake depth, pond depth even for this one.
Marianas Trench.
We will get even deeper on what a judge's role is, why we have judges, and how judges are utilized at higher level events.
And if we're lucky, we may even have another judge on with us, which would be very, very exciting.
But ultimately, in both of our experiences, Magic players are awesome, judges are awesome, events are awesome, stores are awesome, Standard is awesome. And we want you to have an awesome time with all of those things.
Moral of the story, play Standard.
Play Standard, play Magic. I'm not going to say forget Standard. I would never say that. I would never say that. But play Magic. Play it at your events. Play it casually. Play it competitively. Learning about rules enforcement at a competitive level has actually been a really exciting journey for me, and seeing the ways in which there are actually decisions I get to make as a competitive player that are beneficial to me, that are not cheating. Like, you can scoop at instant speed. This is a very useful tactic. That
not even. You can scoop at any time.
At any point.
your opponent turns a morph face up while you don't have priority. Concede. You're allowed to do it.
But ultimately, go play Magic.
Yeah.
Get out there, go play Magic, and remember to call Judge at the first sign of trouble. Look, with all that said, that is all we have for you today. We look forward to seeing you again next week. New episodes release on Mondays at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Until then, you can keep track of all of our releases at RaiseMTG on both Instagram and Blue Sky. You can find me on the same platforms at kirabobira.jpg and Maya at MayaMTG. A big thank you to the State Library of Victoria for the ongoing use of their space. And until next week, remember, it misses nothing, and it has no sense of humor.